Hey, greetings, everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West here, the Executive Director of the American Constitutional Rights Union and the ACRU Action Fund. And I want to welcome you once again to another episode of Live Free TV. And we have been on this theme about, the whole illegal immigration and understanding the law, understanding the Constitution, and understanding the constitutional authorities that comes down from the federal government, the delineation with the states, and then, of course, with local municipalities. And one of the reasons why the ACRU was established back in 1999 was to be a bulwark, to be an opposing voice to the ACLU. And one of the things that we created recently is what we call the Defender Initiative, because what we saw was the ACLU going after a lot of our local sheriffs and also municipalities, police chiefs who were working with the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, ICE, under what is called a 287G program. Now, we have seen many letters. As you well know, we shared the letter from Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison to sheriffs there in Minnesota. We have the same issue going on in New Mexico and also in Colorado. But something that was just brought up to our attention was what's happening in Maryland. And so I wanted to bring on two very astute, very knowledgeable sheriffs from the great state of Maryland. And I want to introduce to you first and foremost Sheriff Scott Adams, who is a lifelong resident of Cecil County, Maryland. Sheriff Adams has spent his entire career with the Cecil County Sheriff's Office, more than 32 years, and has the distinct honor of being the first deputy to work through the ranks and become the elected sheriff in 2014. He is now serving in his third term as sheriff. Sheriff Adams served as the president of the Maryland Sheriff's Association from 2002 to 2023 and was also a member of the Maryland Police and Corrections Standards Commission for the same years. And we also have Sheriff Michael Lewis. Sheriff Lewis is retired as a sergeant with the Maryland State Police. He retired in July the 1st of 2006 after 22 years with the Maryland State Police. He was elected sheriff of, let me see if I get this right, Wicomico County, Maryland on November the 7th of 2006. And after having run unopposed for the past 16 years, is serving his fifth consecutive four-year term. Sheriff Lewis serves a county of over 103,000 citizens, along with 96 sworn deputies. As well, he's a two-time past president of the Maryland State Sheriff's Association, serving the interests of 23 fellow sheriffs and well over 2,000 deputies from across the state of Maryland. Sheriff Adams, Sheriff Lewis, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Free TV.
Thank you for allowing us to be here with you, Colonel, and we're very excited to be with you and your listeners.
Well, thank you. Now, I want to start with you, Sheriff Lewis. I think a lot of people in the United States of America, really don't understand what delineates a sheriff's office and the duties and responsibilities of a sheriff from, let's say, the police chief, or like we have here in the state of Texas, constables or marshals. What is it about the office of sheriff that is different from these other law enforcement positions?
Well, the sheriff's position is a executive position that's created by the Maryland Constitution. We are constitutionally elected officers. We are state elected officers whose salaries are paid for by our respective counties. Well, we are elected by our people. We are not appointed by a mayor. We're not appointed by a city council. We're not appointed by a city council. And we're certainly not appointed by a judge. We are elected by our people, and we answer to our people. And historically, sheriffs not only are the chief law enforcement officers for their respective counties, but they also typically run their jails. In the state of Maryland, about half of the sheriffs run the jails in the state of Maryland. And for instance, back in 1986 here in Wicomico County, Maryland, then Sheriff Hunter Nelms requested through the councilmen and women that the jail be taken over by the councilmen and women to allow him to further focus on a rapidly evolving role of the sheriff's office in the county, because we were taking on greater responsibilities over criminal investigations and organized crime. So at that time, they freed the Wicomico County Sheriff's up from the jail. Now the jail warden is appointed by a county executive here in Wicomico County, and the jail doesn't fall beneath me, unlike my colleague, Sheriff Scott Adams.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Sheriff Adams. What is the difference between what your agency and how you manage that agency from what we see happening with Sheriff Lewis there in Cecil County?
Sure. So my agency does all those same things as far as law enforcement, court security, but we also I'm one of the 10 counties left in Maryland who still has the jail that falls directly under me for administration of that. So it doesn't go to my county executive; it still falls directly to me. I prefer that here. It gives I think it gives more accountability to back to the people, just as Sheriff Lewis was talking about accountability directly to the people as the sheriff's duties. It also falls within the jail to me as well. So, and it gives us a better understanding. I know sometimes sheriffs coming new into this job, it's a lot of them come from law enforcement, and it's usually the one side that of the justice system they have to learn. They haven't necessarily worked in the jail. They've I'm sure they've been to jails dropping prisoners off or whatever it may be, but not the administrative side of jails. So it's usually a bit the first kind of big learning curve that happens there. Me growing up in the sheriff's office, I say growing up, I started there right out of college here. And as I was saying, or as you said earlier, for 33 years, I knew the jail probably better than a lot of people when I started the job of sheriff in 2014. So it was a big benefit to me.
Well, Sheriff Adams, I want to stick with you. What do you see as some of the current challenges that you have as a duly elected constitutional law enforcement officer?
Well, the challenge that we're certainly see break out right now is the state legislature dropping these bills down that affect us statewide,
Mhm.
right? So it's not a local bill. It's not just affecting county by county. These are affecting statewide. So for us to effectively do our jobs, keep our public safe, uh, it's makes it very challenging when they take these resources away from us where we can do so in a controlled environment, as I'm sure as we get into 287G and what the different programs are.
Mhm.
But with this one in particular, uh, where it's ran only in corrections, and we continue to try to push that out, and the narrative always gets pushed back that it's some kind of a profiling program, that it's
Mhm.
something to do with law enforcement, which it is not in the least. It is only in the jail, and we it's in a controlled environment where when we if we identify somebody with immigration status issues or detainers, they can be either ICE can come in and serve them with either the detainers they need to serve, or move them, whatever ICE protocol is going to be, but it's going to be in a controlled environment where we are going to lose that.
And that's an important thing. First of all, can you just educate our listeners on the 287G program, the three models of it?
Sure. So the one I just spoke of is the
Sheriff
jail model,
Adams?
and that's what 3 counties in Maryland currently have. I've had mine since 2019, and there's 2 other counties that go back even beyond that. There's, I believe it's 4 other counties, 5 other counties that had just signed on to task force model, or well, Sheriff Lewis is going to have to speak to that one better because I honestly don't know the model that the warrant model they stepped into, but it's more that model gives them more authority just to serve those detainers if a person comes into those detention centers who already has an immigration detainer on them, for them to be able to take care of that. Our model screens every person that comes into our detention facility. So in our model since 2019, we've screened over 12,000
Mhm.
individuals who have come in through our jail. Every person gets screened, and they're screened through 6 statuses, that if immigration statuses that they may fall into. Most people do not. Most people come in, they're U.S. citizens, and they screen right out. They
Yeah.
have nothing to do with this program. If they screen in, as I said earlier, they could come into one of these categories, and it may be illegal entry. It might have been reentry. It could
Mhm.
be some pretty bad uh, categories that they could fall into. Some could be naturalized citizens. Some are still here legally, even though they screen in. But what we're able to do is identify some people that come in that ICE doesn't know about yet.
Yeah.
When this goes away, we will not be able to do that. We will not be able to now identify subjects that come into our detention facilities that don't have detainers. We won't know about them. ICE won't know about them.
I think it's important that people understand, Title 18, United States Code 1325, unauthorized entry into the United States of America is a federal offense. First time misdemeanor, subsequent times there are felonies. And I think, we need to be reminded of Rachel Morin, the mother there in Maryland who lost her life because of a criminal illegal immigrant. Sheriff Lewis, talk to us because I find it very strange that you have lawmakers in the state of Maryland that is telling law enforcement that they cannot enforce the law, and that's this Senate Bill 245, which has passed the Assembly there and also passed the Senate, and it's waiting for Governor Moore's signature. Tell the audience a little bit about Senate Bill 245.
Well, 245 would essentially abolish all 287G programs in the entire state of Maryland, prohibiting law enforcement from entering into any formal agreement with the Department of Homeland Security, specifically ICE. Now, keep in mind, Colonel, we have full authority. In fact, it's condoned and it's embraced by the Maryland legislature that we work with U.S. Marshals, that we work with the DEA, that we work with all of our other federal partners, including the ATF, the United States Secret Service. But they want to prohibit us from working with immigration and customs enforcement. As you well know, Maryland is not only a sanctuary state, but we have cities, specifically Baltimore City and other cities in the state of Maryland, that are sanctuary cities. They've made it very clear. Only 27% of Maryland's General Assembly is made up of Republicans. That means we have 73% Democrats. And when Sheriff Adams and I arrived at our state capitol in the last several weeks to testify in opposition of Senate Bill 245, we were put on a panel together and we were told before we ever testified, this bill is going to pass. We want you to know that, but we're still going to listen to hear what you have to say. And now it's passed by the Senate. It's passed by the House. It's sitting on the governor's desk. And because of the emergency legislation, the governor can decide, I'm not going to sign it. He doesn't have to sign it because within 10 days, it's automatically law because it was passed on emergency legislation. He doesn't have to sign it. And he knows that. Although we fully anticipate he will sign it. Who knows what's going to happen? It's what Sheriff Adams and I both testified to up on the House floor and the Senate floor. The fact that we're now going to be prohibited from working with immigration and customs enforcement. This is going to put more ICE officers in the sanctuary state of Maryland. They're currently disassembling ICE out in Minneapolis, and they're redeploying thousands of ICE officers across the country to other sanctuary states. Maryland, bordering Washington, D.C., we've seen carnage by illegal MS-13 members not only murdering our Maryland citizens, but dismembering their bodies and dumping their bodies in various counties, not just Prince George's County, not just Montgomery County, but counties, Colonel, that typically don't see this type of violence. And now we have known criminal aliens in our state committing murders all the time. I'm a daily recipient of something called the Daily Shooting Report that comes out through Maryland's Coordinated Analysis Center, or MCAC. Sheriff Adams receives the same report. It covers every homicide that occurs in the state of Maryland every single day. And the homicides that are occurring right on the Washington, D.C. line in these urban areas that are run by these urban leaders, there's not one elected Republican in Montgomery County, period, that has a population of 1.2 million people. 100% elected Democrats. And that's where the bulk of MS-13 members are currently residing. They have a sanctuary there. They have shelter there. And we have members within Maryland's General Assembly that are not only condoning but promoting this type of violence because they refused to allow sheriffs like Sheriff Adams and I to work with immigration and customs enforcement. And when you don't allow sheriffs to do a safe transfer over to ICE in a secure facility like our jails, instead they're being released, then ICE has to go out into the community and try to relocate them. And when they kick in those doors, with or without a warrant, because they certainly have the authority to do it without a warrant in given circumstances. People are like, well, they can't do it without a warrant. Yes, they can. So all they've done is they've allowed ICE to now go back out into our communities, kicking in more doors, having these violent interactions out there with the public who say, you can't do this to me. And now we're going to have more incidents like the Preddy case, like the Good case occurring here in Maryland. I didn't want it. Sheriff Adams didn't want it, but our testimony fell on deaf ears because they were determined to pass it, because we live in the communist state of Maryland, and neither Sheriff Adams nor I or our sheriff colleagues can do anything to stop what's coming out of our state capitol right now. This is what we have been battling for years, and now it's reached a boiling point. And you and I both know, Colonel, without border security, there is no homeland security. The Biden administration created an unsustainable, untenable situation in 4 years on our southwest borders. Millions of individuals have poured in here, and we all knew that it was going to create a humanitarian crisis. But it's now created a homeland security crisis. And now sheriffs like Sheriff Adams and I are battling every single day on our streets to try to contain a raging forest fire.
Well, Sheriff Adams, to me, it would seem that under the Supremacy Clause, Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution, that the state of Maryland, where these legislators are putting politics over the safety and security of your constituents, the people that you're called to serve, their constituents also. But really and truthfully, if the federal government is following federal law, how can they order you as a duly elected constitutional law enforcement officer not to enforce the law? It seems to me that something is lost in this equation, Sheriff Adams.
Yeah, Colonel, that's a great point. And unfortunately, we are looking for a solution hard. We reached out to you. We've reached out looking for some legal guidance on what we can do here. We did get some news. I know Sheriff Lewis probably saw this as well this morning from another colleague, another sheriff in the state who's had the longest running program, Sheriff Jenkins, who got some news back from some legal counsel that says there isn't anything we can do, that the Supremacy Clause is not going to help us here. We're not ready to give up the fight. I know I'm not, and I know the other sheriffs are not. I know for our communities, we can't be ready to give up this fight. As Sheriff Lewis said, in my community, we have not had ICE boots on the ground here that I can recall for a long, long time, ever, really, other than what the programming we have, the MOUs we have within our jails, which run smoothly. But we are going to see that now. And our communities, it's going to bring attention. It's going to have this happen the wrong way. It's going to put on two sides. It's going to put criminals on the street that we don't want on the street, that our communities don't want on the street. And then it's going to make it more dangerous for our communities and for the people that need to be removed. It's a lose-lose on both sides of this. I think we were talking earlier. We talk about this a lot, about common sense, and this just doesn't have any, and it just doesn't have any, Colonel.
So, in essence, what you're saying, Sheriff Lewis and Sheriff Adams, is that these legislators, these lawmakers, and whether or not the governor signs it, like you said, in 10 days, it's going to take effect. They are actually creating a situation where you will have the ICE officers having to go out into the community. And of course, the news media will say, look at what ICE is doing, when this is something that the Marxist leftist legislators created there in the state of Maryland, when you already have a system that's in place, a program that's in place to preclude that from happening. Am I out to lunch here?
No, you're 100% right, Colonel. And this is what we testified to up in Annapolis. Instead of doing that safe transfer in security of a jail, a facility, they're now going out into the streets, going to be kicking in doors. Now they're going to hunt down the guy they're looking for. But everybody in the house gets put in handcuffs. They get secured. They put on the floor. They go through them and determine that, hey, we have 7 people in this house. They're in this country legally. And 6 of those 7 might be hard workers out there working every day, being productive members of society. But now all of them are going. All their family members are going. Everybody goes. This is what they've now set up all these other people in society to face, as opposed to allowing 287G to do its job. Now they're going to set ICE loose on our streets. And listen, I support ICE. I will always support our ICE agents. And I'm always going to be there. I don't care whether I have a formal agreement or an informal agreement. I will respond if they need us. But wow, you talk about these guys going out in the streets doing things that traditionally ICE never had to do before. Now they've got to go out and hunt these individuals down, whereas before they could be in the jail and we could do that safe transfer them into jail.
And you're talking about MS-13 gang members. These are not, just ma and pa kettle. These are probably individuals that are armed, that are not willing to just surrender themselves to ICE. And so you create that second and third order safety and security effect of now you may have more firefights out in these communities and out in the streets. I want to come to you, Sheriff Adams, because we were talking about this new Senate Bill 791 that's coming out of Maryland. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, absolutely. So the difference in this bill and Senate Bill 245. So I think we've covered 245 pretty well. It would destroy and end all agreements and MOUs that are currently in
All
place.
cooperation, right?
Yes, but not all cooperation, all agreements currently in place. So we could still continue the normal course of business, which has always happened, where an individual would come into a detention facility if they have an ICE detainer. Now, a lot of these ICE detainers are civil detainers that come on from immigration detainers, but those individuals would serve their time or be in our detention facilities. When they're finish their time or near finish their time, ICE would be notified, hey, they have a detainer. They have 48 hours to pick those individuals up before we would have to release them. That could still continue with 245, with Senate Bill 245 being passed. If this legislation is passed, it eliminates all that as well. We could have no cooperation, no notification to ICE for anything, even on the detainer side, unless they have a judicial warrant on them.
So once again, I think this is the critical point that all the listeners and the people viewing this Live Free TV episode need to understand. You have elected lawmakers in the state of Maryland that are saying to the constituents there that they do not care about their safety and security, that they want to harbor people that have broken the law, and they want to prevent duly elected constitutional law enforcement officers and agencies to abide by and enforce the law. To me, this is an upside down world. And I want to go to both of you on this, and I'll start with you, Sheriff Lewis. What happens if you say, I'm not going to do this? I'm going to continue to protect my citizens. What are you putting yourself at risk for?
Colonel, we're about to find out, because I am going to protect my house. I am going to protect this county. And it says I cannot work with ICE in any formal agreement. So this formal agreement is going to be abolished. I will continue to make those phone calls. I will continue to work with ICE on matters of mutual concern, because above all else, I have a duty and responsibility to protect my county, and I'm going to do it at all costs. I will do it at all costs. And I want to share one case, a quick case that happened last year in Prince George's County, Maryland. A little 19-year-old girl just graduated from high school. Her name was Dakara Thompson, graduated from high school. In August of last year, she was kidnapped. She was brutally murdered. They hunted and searched for her body for days. 9 days later, in August, in the middle of the summer, they found her badly decomposed body along U.S. Route 50 in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. The man who was arrested and charged with her murder, Hugo Hernandez Mendez, an illegal criminal alien, had already been arrested in Montgomery County, Maryland for DWI. He was released because they don't have 287G down there, because they're not allowed to work with ICE, because they would have put a detainer on him. He wouldn't have gone anywhere. He was released and awaiting trial when he kidnapped and murdered this beautiful Maryland citizen. And 19 years old, just graduated from high school, had her whole life in front of her. And now he's awaiting murder charges in Prince George's County, Maryland. Had ICE or 287G been in effect in that county, he would have never gotten out on those DUI charges.
Sheriff Adams?
Yeah, I agree. We're sworn and we take an oath. We're elected to protect our citizens. What will they try to do to us? Because that's clarified in a couple of these bills. One, they control our funding to some levels. They will try to limit funding. They will pull grants. They will, and it's interesting. And again, Sheriff Lewis hasn't seen this new language, this new bill, because it just dropped. But they made sure to put language in this new bill which gives the illegal aliens the right to civilly sue us individually and the members in the detention facilities. It's just it's very interesting, the wording on all this, to give them actual damages, punitive damages, and injunctive relief. So it's encouraging them. Listen to this. It's encouraging them, this new bill, to voluntarily tell the detention staff that they are here illegally, because then it invokes all these rights to them. That once they are identified and we know that they're here illegally, we cannot say anything, and if we do, then these rights come into play, these injunctive reliefs and damages. So they've
So,
gone so far that side to make sure that we know that, hey, if you do this, they can identify. Now we can go after you.
so the rights of an American citizen in the state of Maryland, Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care, Libertarian, but the rights of a citizen, a legal law abiding citizen, means so little to these members of your state house and state senate, and I guess also to your governor, that they're willing to elevate criminal illegal immigrants over them and their safety and security. What do you think that this could end up, because we're, like I said, we're seeing this in Maryland, in New Mexico, in Minnesota, in Colorado. Does this need to get to the Supreme Court?
We're hoping it does get to the Supreme Court, Colonel. We are looking into all legal avenues to get this in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, because you and I, as proud Americans, we know this is wrong. The most Americans know it's wrong, but we still have lawmakers who have made it very clear, and we have an elected attorney general in the state of Maryland that has consistently put out memorandums to sheriffs across the state, reminding us of our limited authority in these cases, but especially reminding us of the consequences if we agree to work with ICE and violate illegal aliens' rights.
Sheriff Adams, and then I'll come to Sheriff Lewis. I want to give you yet to the last word. What do you need citizens, not just the citizens of Maryland, what do you need citizens across the United States of America who will view this interview? What do you need them to do? Who do they need to contact? What is their call to action?
Well, I mean, that if they don't already have this occurring in their communities, I encourage them to contact their legislators and get them on board, because it's coming to them soon if it hasn't already in their communities. So don't let it happen. And the other side, so this isn't the first try with this legislation in Maryland. They brought this on the last 2 years, and we've been able to fight it off. This year, there was no stopping it. There's a national political narrative that's running in the background of all this as well, that's helping push this through. But that's what I would say. Do some research in your counties and your states. Find out where you stand with all this, and contact every leader that you can, from your governors, your congress people. And if you don't have it yet, make them aware. Get them on board. If you do have it, I don't know. We're still trying to figure that answer out here in Maryland right now. What are next steps and what we can do to keep our citizens safe.
Sheriff Lewis?
Colonel, that is why we reached out to you and your group, because we recognize that our avenues to remedy this situation are very limited in the state of Maryland. But I do want all of our viewers and our listeners to know this. What's in your backyard today will be in your front yard tomorrow. We're 1,500 miles from the border, and we have experienced an increase and an influx and illegal immigration and crimes being created by illegals in our counties exponentially. My deputies, and I'm going to leave with this, the deputies are en route to our office a few weeks ago with an individual they warned multiple times to quiet down, because we're not allowed to ask anyone of their immigration status on any call for service. We're prohibited by state law from doing that. But within moments after we cleared the scene, we had to respond back there. They had a major fight in progress. We ended up locking up an illegal guy who spoke zero English. While en route back to the sheriff's office, One of my deputies was struck almost head on by a vehicle going southbound in the northbound lanes of US Route 13. When he turned around and got the vehicle stopped, another illegal alien operating that vehicle drunk driving. So this is what we're dealing with now, and it's out of control. And we have a state government here in Maryland that's offering no relief for the American citizens. And if we don't fight this progressivism now and we don't unite, this country's doomed.
You know, I want to thank you, Sheriff Scott Adams, Sheriff Mike Lewis. You two have close to 75, 80 years of law enforcement experience. You would think that lawmakers there in the State House and State Senate would listen to you because you're on the ground and you're facing this every single day. And what you bring up is an important point. It was back in 2008 when someone said that we're 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. This is what transforming the United States of America looks like. When we elevate the rights of people that are here illegally over the rights of legal, law-abiding citizens. Last thing, how can people follow you? Your website, how can people support you? I'll go to you, Sheriff Adams, first.
Sure. So, I mean, we have our Facebook here in Cecil County with the Cecil County Sheriff's Office.
And Sheriff Lewis.
Wicomico County Sheriff's Office on Facebook, WICOMICO, County Sheriff's Office, or they can follow my Facebook, Sheriff Mike Lewis, or my personal Facebook, Mike Lewis. I can also be reached, Mike Lewis at wicomicocounty.org. I'm proud of all Americans. We're going to stand strong. I'm currently running for a 6th term for no other reason, because I don't want to leave this office in inexperienced hands. I was ready to retire after my 5th term, Colonel. Like you, with all due respect, sir, I'm an OG, but I'm going to stick around because the fight is on. They brought it to me. I'm not going to surrender. I'm not going to wave that white flag. I'm in it for the long haul. And I thank you for your service, Colonel.
My pleasure. And I thank you both. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Live Free TV. Let's support these great sheriffs, not just in Maryland, but all across the country, who are standing up against this Marxist, leftist, progressive infiltration and undermining of our Constitution and our rule of law, because you cannot live free if you're not safe and secure. God bless you all. Until next time, we'll see you at the American Constitutional Rights Union, Live Free TV. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Colonel.